Hey, what's up guys? I try to make videos when I'm motivated. Some days there's going to be days where I'm not motivated, and today is one of those days where I'm motivated. I've been talking to some of my athletes and there's been a few trends that I just want to go over. So what, why what, so what is one of those things that I like to talk about. Hey, what's up Gurion? So today what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about Alcatraz. Alcatraz is happening this weekend. Huge congratulations to anyone who has the courage to compete in that. My athlete Mario Wilson, you're going to do great. Really proud of you, man. You know, without even stepping up to the line, I'm proud of you. So have fun, and everyone else racing Alcatraz, have a blast. Also, I wanted to talk about my camp I'm throwing in the fall. If you want to do a high volume 15-hour training week and you think you can get through that, that is September 17th through September 22nd or 23rd. We're going to do 5 to 6 full days of training. You can check that out on my website. Go to camp down in the scroll and you'll find it. So getting down to the nuts and bolts of what I wanted to talk about today, I want to also talk about the skipping recovery workouts. I wanted to talk about a power leg and recovery leg in cycling, and also there's power legs and recovery legs in running, and then also the upper body in swimming, and how that relates and translates into real world and bringing awareness to that. Also, just talking a little bit about paralysis by analysis, and then ultimately just getting things done, and it's all about balance, right? So let's get right into it. So the power leg and recovery leg theory, whether you're running, biking, or swimming, you're going to have one leg that's more dominant than the other leg. So for example, many people have a right leg that is much more powerful than the left leg. That's going to be the power leg. You know, coincidentally, most people have a recovery leg that's on the left side. It usually has less muscle mass, and if you were to only do a single leg drill, that one's going to be a little bit more clunky on the pull up from, let's say, 7 o'clock to the 12 o'clock position. And the right side, that is usually more dominant for people, is going to have a stronger quad, stronger hip flexor. So pushing down on the pedal from, let's say, 2 o'clock to the drive phase, 5 o'clock before the recovery of 6 and 7 o'clock. Then the hip flexor on the more dominant side will actually pull the pedal up. Now, on a lot of cyclists, the glutes are very inactive. So if we're talking about the knee getting pushed into extension on the more dominant side, that's the quad doing that. The calf and shin muscles are really just eccentrically stabilizing the ankle, because in a big circular motion, the ankles are actually eccentrically being decelerated by each given muscle depending on where it is, to keep the ankle flexion about the same. If you see a lot of ankle motion during your pedal stroke, there's an issue. Either the seat's too high, or it's too far back or too far forward. We can get into that later. So there's a dominant side and a less dominant side. We've established that, and a good equilibrium for the pedal stroke seems to be right around 52-48. If there's a bigger variance than that, a lot of the times the athlete can't get to their full potential. But trying to get perfect, I've never seen an athlete who's perfect, but at the highest levels, the variance, the allowable variance, that tends to be the equilibrium of, balance, because it's like sort of like a frisbee. If you were to throw a frisbee and there was a quarter taped onto the side of that frisbee, it's going to spin lopsided. So we can't expect to be perfect, completely smooth, because if your right leg has more muscle in it than your left, vice versa, your right shoulder has more muscle mass than your left, then obviously if we're doing repetitive circular motions, there's going to be what we call an asymmetric imbalance. So that's okay, but to what extent? What extent do we need to start pulling it back? So a couple tips to try to create more balance, right? So we don't have like 55% power with one leg and then, we're only 45 on the other. Because those gross imbalances can end up leading to a lack of performance or even overuse injury. So what we can do in order to really capitalize on that example is to really focus a little bit on the less dominant leg. And we can focus on the left dominant leg. One of my favorite ways is to start each rep of your sets in a gym with the less dominant leg. Yeah, it's that simple. So I've seen many people actually increase the strength of their less dominant side, not by just doing more reps or more load, but just starting the exercise or starting the reps. So for example, if I were to do some Bulgarian split squats where my right leg is in front and my left leg is in the back, which is going to give my right leg more load, but that's my more dominant side, I'm going to be like, wait, stop. And I'm going to bring my left foot forward, if that's my less dominant, my recovery side, and I'm going to start the exercise with my less dominant side. What that'll do is it'll bring more awareness to the muscle, which increases the electricity. I've seen people just switch it up. You can even go as far as when you're putting on your pants, if your right leg dominant, your power leg, instead of always putting that leg in first, because most of the time that's exactly what's happening, you can actually switch it up and put the left leg in. So anyways, it increases the electricity. It's almost like a gauge of a wire to a speaker wire, from the stereo to the speaker. If you want high quality sound, you need to increase the gauge, the thickness of that speaker wire. So by focusing on starting each set or starting each rep of every set with your less dominant side, you're going to help increase the activation from the brain to that side, and it's going to increase strength. Now, a lot of gyms have been offering something called bioelectrical impedance, where they actually will measure your body fat percentage. But a lot of gyms now are charging like $15. Rally, Crunch, YMCA, they'll actually charge you $15, and you can actually see how much muscle you have in the right shoulder or the right arm in comparison to the your left leg to right leg. And something that I've noticed is even professional athletes, all the way down through the ranks, is they're actually going to be bigger on one side. That is very normal. So going back to that, that creates gallops, right? I'm going to call it a gallop. You know, you can call it whatever you want. But like in running, when you're going downstairs, right? If you notice and you bring awareness to actually going downstairs, you're going to notice you step down like this. Boom, 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 without even thinking about it. So one toe is going to have the bottom of one foot is going to have less ground contact time. So the leg that has less ground contact time usually is the recovery leg. You know, in cycling, it's usually the one that whips around a little bit more smooth. But like for example, in your run, right leg, left leg, right leg, left leg, you're going to notice the ground contact time, generally speaking, with the recovery leg is going to be a little bit smoother. Now, one contradiction that having a more dominant side and that side being bigger is that it isn't necessarily going to have the best range of motion. Actually, that tends to be the opposite. So the side that usually is stronger or more dominant or has a better electrical connection is actually going to have reduced range of motion. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing, because your recovery side, sometimes if you try to strengthen it, what ends up happening is that muscle gets tight. And so through the functional exercise or activity, when you're trying to hypertrophy or get more muscle in there or get it more powerful, the muscles get tight and it takes them a lot longer to warm up. And what you're actually doing is decreasing the range of motion, which can affect how your efficiency is, or even your VO2 max, because efficiency is worked into that factor. So let's see here. So again, the allowable variance is about 2%. If you have more than about a 2% variance of muscle mass or your power ratio, when you have a power meter that tells you from left to right balance during a threshold test, then we should talk, right? If you ever need to figure out what power that you need to be in for a particular race, there's metrics that we can use to figure out exactly what the highest sustainable effort at any given grade should be, depending on what your threshold was to begin with. And I do that through, applications like Training Peaks and Best Bike Split and in my own personal experience. And that is really, and it doesn't even have to be a race. You can actually try to figure that out and use it for training. So this information isn't just for professionals or serious triathletes. This is people who want to bring awareness to exercising in general, and it'll go a long way to improving or setting that next PR, whether that's the hill in front of your house or the World Championships in Australia. Next, paralysis by analysis. A lot of people try to do the things that I do for a living, and sometimes I can create a huge, the thoughts go very, very deep. And one thing I've noticed about great athletes is they go deep. They go deep into the nuances of that given activity if they want to get good at it. If you're, getting deep into marketing, you want to know, the colors and the hashtags and, the emojis and all that stuff. Same thing with triathlon. You want to know, bring awareness to the left and right position. Think about analogies, knowing the difference between the left muscle mass to the right muscle mass. But if you think about it too much, and that's detracting you from actually acting, then that's a serious problem. So really, it's just about bringing awareness to it. Unless you've gone to school for it like I have, I probably wouldn't try to get too deep, or I'd consider reaching out to someone like me who can take a look at that and really pick up some of the screenshots within your data and learn more about you in order to try to figure that out. And hi, Alexandra. Hey, what's up, Mike? Hey, Hard Running. Hey, FinCom and anyone else who joined. Thanks for coming. So I'm just ranting right now. This is something that doesn't happen very often, but it's happening more and more often. Another thing is, a lot of athletes will mistakenly build volume until they get injured or until something happens, until they burn out. And then when people burn out, usually, is they'll blame it on family, they'll blame it on work, they'll blame it on finances. Just like, they will never blame it on going too hard for, unsustainable amount of time and then just burning out. Just sort of like someone won't blame purchasing a certain product because they were advertised to by that brand. But on a subconscious level, that person was more likely to buy that product because of years of subliminal messaging and brand recognition, and they make decisions based on what they feel comfortable with. And the more times someone sees something, the more times they feel comfortable with it. So a lot of the times people, there's this misconception that they need to build volume, but if they keep building, they always get injured. So what I'm going to recommend is to do 2 on, 1 off, or 3 on, 1 off. That means build for 1 to 2 weeks or even 3 weeks before you take a down period. That allows your body to overcompensate, recover, and that's going to go a long ways too. Also, recovery workouts is a thing. People are like, oh, I didn't do the workout because I was really tired and I was sore and I just wasn't feeling it. Well, that's the reason you should do the workout. You should see your body as like a diesel tractor. It has hydraulics going all over it with fluid. That fluid is your blood. So if you're on the bike, for example, and you kept the intensity low, what you're doing is you're actually pumping the blood to your heart, which is going to oxygenate it. And if your blood is increased the oxygen, if you increase the oxygen in your blood, you're going to recover faster. And also filter out free radicals. Free radicals are those little microscopic atoms that bounce off your muscles and kill healthy tissue. So by cycling or doing a low intensity, you're going to be able to increase recovery because you're going to increase the amount of oxygen in your system. Hence, you're going to heal up the muscles that are damaged from the workouts the days before. So try not to come up with an excuse, I didn't do the recovery workout because I was tired. Actually, do the recovery workout because it's going to help you become rested faster. And yes, short term it may make you feel more tired, but the next day it'll actually make you feel better. Lastly, one thing is people are like, hey, Coach Austin, I know you've been to Worlds in 70.3 half Ironman distance. Why don't you do full blah, blah, blah? Well, first off, I love Olympic distance racing. I love 70.3 racing. And Ironman, one of the reasons I love Ironman, the sport, triathlon, and ultra distance is especially because the older you get, the more your body's going to adapt to the energy system that's dominant and needed for that sport. For example, sprinters usually have a peak age that are in their 20s. Now, endurance athletes for ultra events actually have peak ages that are even 33 to 35. Tim Don set the Ironman world record at age 38. And there's many other examples. So I'm actually still young. I'm not even 30 yet. I'm about to turn 30 at the end of this year. So what I'm doing is I'm capitalizing on my age and working the energy system. So I'm doing 70.3 because that is more fun for me, and I'm building up the speed. Once I get to a certain speed that's competitive in Olympic distance and 70.3, as I age, I'm gonna carry that speed over to a longer distance. The mistake that a lot of athletes make is they go too long, too early in their life, and their body really hasn't developed, because your body actually develops slow twitch muscles as you age. So if you want to be great at a really fast, sharp, short sport, being younger is actually going to play to your advantage when we're talking about, age 30 and below. But if you're talking about ultra endurance events, studies have shown in results, and my own anecdotal opinion tells you that longer distance sports are actually going to be best performed by men and women, of course, who are actually older than 30. And another thing that I love is it has one of those highest peak ages. I mean, that is one of the reasons I love this sport, is because I was like, oh wow, my athletes can keep improving forever and ever and ever and ever, and it's never going to, there's 80-year-olds who are participating in the sport, and people are like, sometimes I've talked to older people who are like, I'm too old for triathlon. I'm like, no, you're not. Trust me. So some of the things that sometimes are like, hey, Coach Austin, why do I trust you to coach me to a full distance Ironman if you've never done a full distance Ironman? Well, from a clinical standpoint, if you understand the science behind it, and you understand the course, and you understand the nutrition, the flexibility, the science, the strength, everything behind it, then you can apply that to longer distances. Like, for example, Kona, the World Championships. I've never raced Kona, but I have been to Kona. 2014, I went to the Ironman World Championships. I was actually also there for a Training Peaks clinic and also a USA Triathlon clinic. That was 4 years ago now, and it's just amazing. Some of the people that I met there now in the USAT clinic, going off to the side a little bit, Marnie Ocean, now she's the head marketing director for Ironman, basically responsible for growing the sport. AJ Bucko, and the only time I've actually ever really talked to him, and even though I lived next to him for a couple of years in Boulder, I've just been watching him become a great coach and grow a fantastic team. So what's up, AJ? It's good to see you grow over the past 5 years since that clinic. And then also Carly has become a phenomenal body worker, working at the highest levels. And then also I pushed myself to become everything that I can in order to help other people, because helping other people is what helps me. If it was about money, I wouldn't be teaching triathlon. I would be, fixing cars or managing automotive shops or doing carpentry, for example, because that is a job that is in very high demand, even though those are two of my other passions. But triathlon seems to have a better lifestyle, and I've actually worked hard enough for enough years to put myself in a position where I can choose triathlon over those other two, even though I still integrate them as hobbies. I love working on my own truck. I love doing, fixing furniture that I find, or building stuff, or painting, or fixing things, making houses look pretty. Anyways, if you didn't see the whole video, feel free to take a look on my main page. I'm going to post the full video. Hopefully you picked up something from all that. Till next time, later.